Kumusta po kayo? Welcome back. I'm interrupting our normal lesson to respond to a question from a subscriber. In creating my video lessons, I always get a lot of questions in the chat box and I do my best to respond to them as quickly as I can. But there are questions that need time to respond to because the questions require more in-depth response. Such question is from @WinstonMock, who asked, would you be able to do a video on the Tagalog equivalent of himself, herself, myself, itself, yourself, yourselves, themselves, ourselves, oneself? I'm quite confused on the Tagalog version of these terms. What Winston wants to know is about the Tagalog reflexive pronouns. So, Winston, this video is dedicated to answering your question. What are reflexive pronouns? Well, reflexive pronouns are pronouns used when a subject performs an action and receives that action himself, meaning the subject does something to himself or herself and not to anyone else. Tagalog reflexive pronouns correspond directly to English reflexive pronouns. In Tagalog, reflexive pronouns combine the word sarili, self, with the possessive pronouns, or what I call in this channel as group 2 personal pronouns. So we have sarili ko, myself, sarili mo, yourself, sarili natin, ourselves, inclusive, sarili namin, ourselves, exclusive, sarili ninyo, yourselves, sarili niya, himself or herself, and sarili nila, themselves. In English, a reflexive sentence goes something like this: I teach myself. In Tagalog, it is exactly the same. Tinuturuan ko ang sarili ko. The subject does the action of teaching himself or herself and no one else. Let me talk a bit about the nuances on the sentence structure and word order. First, the construction of the sentence follows the verb, subject, object pattern common in Tagalog. Second, the verb we use in the example, tinuturuan, teach or teaching, is the progressive form of the infinitive verb turuan, to teach, and is an verb, which means it's an object-focused verb. If you've watched my videos on Tagalog verbs, you'd remember that the object-focused verbs are the equivalent of the English passive voice. So, though the sentence, tinuturuan ko ang sarili ko, means I teach myself, or I am teaching myself, it can also be interpreted in the passive form, teaching myself by me. So, Tagalog reflexive pronouns work best with object-focused verbs. Third, both the subject pronoun and object pronoun are group 2 personal pronouns. And fourth, the case marker ang is placed before sarili ko. We have learned that Tagalog nouns need a marker to help them stand. So, the noun sarili is paired with the case marker ang sarili. To fully understand this, let's have a few sample sentences with object-focused verbs in the imperative form or the form that commands. Here goes. Linisan mo ang sarili mo. Clean yourself. Tawanan mo ang sarili mo. Laugh at yourself. Tingnan mo ang sarili mo. Look at yourself. Saktan mo ang sarili mo. Hurt yourself. Ayusin mo ang sarili mo. Fix yourself. Mahalin mo ang sarili mo. Love yourself. Sisihin mo ang sarili mo. Blame yourself. Yakapin mo ang sarili mo. Hug yourself. Ibigay mo ang sarili mo. Give yourself away. Ilubog mo ang sarili mo. Sink yourself. Itaas mo ang sarili mo. Elevate yourself. Itama mo ang sarili mo. Correct yourself. I hope our examples make it clear how to use reflexive pronouns in Tagalog. For good measure, let's have some more sample sentences in the conjugated form. But before we do that, please be sure that you are subscribed by clicking on the subscribe button and the bell notification button so you'll be updated of new videos. Alright? Now, on to our examples. Here are some in the completed aspect or when the action has been completed. Let's have a look. Nilinisan ko ang sarili ko. I cleaned myself. Tinawanan mo ang sarili mo. You laugh at yourself. Tiningnan namin ang mga sarili namin. We looked at ourselves. Note that it's ang mga because the subject namin is plural. Minahal natin ang mga sarili natin. We loved ourselves. Sinisi niya ang sarili niya. He or she blamed himself or herself. Inilubog nila ang mga sarili nila. They sunk themselves. Itinaas ko ang sarili ko. I elevated myself. Itinama mo ang sarili mo. You corrected yourself. Now, let's try verbs in the progressive aspect or when the action is currently happening. Here goes. Nililinisan ko ang sarili ko. I clean myself or I am cleaning myself. Tinatawanan mo ang sarili mo. You laugh at yourself or you are laughing at yourself. Tinitingnan namin ang mga sarili namin. We look at ourselves or we are looking at ourselves. Minamahal natin ang mga sarili natin. We love ourselves or we are loving ourselves. Sinisisi niya ang sarili niya. He or she blames himself or herself. Or he or she is blaming himself or herself. Inilulubog nila ang mga sarili nila. They sink themselves or they are sinking themselves. Itinataas ko ang sarili ko. I elevate myself or I am elevating myself. Itinatama mo ang sarili mo. You correct yourself or you are correcting yourself. This time, let's try verbs in the contemplative aspect or when the action is about to occur. Here are some sample sentences. Lilinisan ko ang sarili ko. I will clean myself. Tatawanan mo ang sarili mo. You will laugh at yourself. Titingnan namin ang mga sarili namin. We will look at ourselves. Mamahalin natin ang mga sarili natin. We will love ourselves. Sisisihin niya ang sarili niya. He or she will blame himself or herself. Ilulubog nila ang mga sarili nila. They will sink themselves. Itataas ko ang sarili ko. I will elevate myself. Itatama mo ang sarili mo. You will correct yourself. Ayos ba? I hope our examples are very clear. Now, I have said earlier that Tagalog reflexive pronouns work best with object-focused verbs. But can we also use actor-focused verbs? The answer is yes, but only for very limited verbs. For example, tumingin ka sa sarili mo. Look at yourself. Magalit ka sa sarili mo. Be mad at yourself. Notice some differences with the earlier pattern with object-focused verbs. Number 1, we are using actor-focused verbs. Number 2, the subject pronoun is a group 1 personal pronoun. while the object pronoun remains a group 2 personal pronoun. And number 3, the case marker used is the oblique marker, sa instead of ang. Let's conjugate these examples. Tumingin ako sa sarili ko. I looked at myself. Nagalit ako sa sarili ko. I was mad at myself. Tumitingin siya sa sarili niya. He or she is looking at himself or herself. Nagagalit sila sa mga sarili nila. They are mad at themselves. Titingin kami sa mga sarili namin. We will look at ourselves. Magagalit tayo sa mga sarili natin. We will be mad at ourselves. So, Winston, we have discovered the Tagalog reflexive pronouns as you have requested. And for everyone out there watching, I hope you find this video informative and helpful in your journey in learning Tagalog. Please do hit the like button because that will help in growing this channel. I will see you again soon. Maraming salamat po at hanggang sa susunod.